This is a big segment, a big story segment on the AM show. Ben, what are we talking about?
Well, we're going to be contemplating former Majority Leader Osei Kyei Mensah Bonsu and what he's had to say on the back of that decision by Speaker, the Right Honourable Abansumana Kingsford Bagman, to suspend 4 members of Parliament. And some say it is not grounded in the standing orders, for which reason it cannot even apply. The minority seems to want to sidestep that, but the question is, has the Speaker gone beyond his bounds? We'll be deliberating on that issue, and joining us for a conversation on that, we have John Darko, who is legislator for Swami constituency. We also have Inusaf Hussaini. He's a former Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, also a former Tamale Central legislator. Gentlemen, good morning. Let me start with Inusaf Hussaini. Good morning to you, sir.
How are you?
I am well. I hope you are too.
Good.
All right. You've followed the actions in Parliament from the Appointments Committee and everything and how things have devolved. What do you make of, first, the actions of the members of Parliament, and second, the response by the Right Honourable Speaker?
Well, thank you so very much for having me on your show this morning. And to start off by saying that the actions of the members of Parliament in the Appointments Committee appear to me to be a toxic mixture of immaturity and impunity. In the sense that what happened there...
For some reason, your voice has tapered off. I don't know whether you could just speak up a bit louder for me, please.
Well, I'm saying that it appears to me that what happened in the Appointments Committee of Parliament was a toxic mixture of immaturity and impunity. You know, when a person refuses, fails, or neglects to use faculty, his emotional faculty, his thinking faculty, in the situation he's confronted with, and goes with a brute ego, or the id in him, like Sigmund Freud said, the animalistic behavior in him, then it shocks people who expect that such a person would be rational, would be civil in his reaction to a situation. So this is what happened. I mean, we saw an animalistic display of their emotions, the id in them, and id in them, id in them. And so clearly that shocked the Ghanaian community. That clearly was very unacceptable. That is not what we expect of our members of Parliament. That is not what we voted for. That was not what we had anticipated will come out of the vetting committee. And so it was deeply embarrassing.
And if you look at the standing orders, which Osei Kyei Mensah Bonsu references, and on the back of which the minority is digging its heels in, what does it say about such actions by the Speaker?
That the regulations, the standing orders of Parliament, is inadequate in dealing with a situation like that is lamentably clear. So inadequate. I mean, when a situation of this nature happens, the standing order seems to suggest that there will be an abuse of privilege, there will be a contempt of Parliament, and so the actions of those involved have to be referred to the Privileges Committee. And we have a situation where the Privileges Committee of Parliament has not yet been formed. And so the Speaker took it upon himself to constitute himself into a Privileges Committee to sanction the members, recalcitrant members of Parliament. And with the greatest respect to the Speaker, I don't think that his actions are supported by the standing orders or the Parliamentary Act 300 that he referred to, or the Constitution. I mean, sanctions penalties are not inferred. They are provided in law. I mean, if the drafters of any legislation want to sanction a corporate, a recalcitrant member of parliament in this case, those sanctions must be provided in law. And let me hasten to add that in a democracy, a key feature of such a system is that actions can only be justified if they are known to have been taken or made, or decisions made following a commonly accepted procedure. That's the only way you can justify a decision or an action taken.
All right.
And in this case, that decision has not followed a commonly accepted procedure.
All right. Hold for me. Let me also acknowledge John Darko. He's Member of Parliament for Swami. Mr. Darko, a very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, my brother.
We're so grateful that you took the time to join us. Gentlemen, I want both of you to watch what Speaker Bagbin, or listen to what he had to say on this matter, and then we'll come back and continue with the conversation.
Consequently, the following emergency measures are to be taken with dispatch. 1. The circumstances of the absence of a Privileges and Immunity Committee. In that circumstance, a 7-member special committee shall be constituted under Orders 5 and 20, Rule 4, to conduct a full-scale investigation into the events of yesterday and this morning. The committee shall identify all members involved in the disorder and submit its report with findings and recommendations within 10 days from today. Any member found culpable shall face the appropriate disciplinary actions as prescribed by the Constitution 1992, the Parliament Act of 1965, and the Standing Orders of Parliament. This does not absolve the chairman of the Appointments Committee from performing his duty under Order 268, Rule 3, which says, and I quote, "The chairperson of a committee shall maintain order at a meeting of the committee and decide on each question of order. And A, where a member persists in disorderly conduct, the chairperson may refer the conduct of the member to the House for determination." And so I expect the chairman of the committee to also submit a report to this House. The following members shall constitute the membership of the special committee. I have not consulted any member, and this is a duty no member can fail or decline to perform. The committee is to be chaired by Honorable Emmanuel Bejra. Other members, Honorable Kwame Anyimedu Antwi, Honorable Gisela Akushika Tete Agbotui, Mrs. Honorable Abina Osei Asare, Mrs. Honorable Zaneto Ajiman Rollins, Doctor. Honorable Vincent Opong Asamoah and Honorable Bede Anwata Zuma Zieden. That is a 7-member committee. You are to present your report with recommendations within 10 days from today. 2, in pursuant of Section 10 of the Parliamentary Service Act 1993, Act 460, I direct the Clerk to Parliament to cause to be undertaken a full assessment of all damage caused within the committee room and parliamentary presence as a result of the misconduct of the members. Not a single peso of public funds shall be used to repair or replace any damaged property. Instead, members found responsible shall be surcharged for the full cost of repairs and replacements, with deductions from their emoluments, including the salaries of members, if necessary. 3, in pursuance of the provisions of the Constitution 1992 and the standing orders of Parliament, I further direct the Clerk to Parliament to formally lodge a complaint with the Ghana Police Service to conduct a full criminal investigation into the matter for appropriate action. 4, I call for an immediate meeting of the Committee of Selection today, to reconstitute the Appointments Committee as a matter of urgency and to...
Well, so that's the Speaker of Parliament, Alban Bagbin. But let me go to Mr. John Darko. He's Member of Parliament for Swami, for his thoughts. Sir, thank you for joining the conversation. When you look at the steps that the Speaker of Parliament has taken to deal with that altercation we saw last Friday, would you say it's an overkill? Even before we get to the legality side of it, which is what your side is arguing for, was it an overkill? And a special member, a 7-member special committee to investigate, file a complaint with the police service, and those who will be found culpable will be surcharged for the cost of repairs and all that. Is it an overkill?
Well, I mean, I think that we can separate them.
Sir, please speak up for us. Your voice is...
All right. I'm saying that his own suggestions, we can separate them and make a decision. So, for instance, I don't see anything wrong with him setting up a special member committee to investigate it. I think that is what ought to be done, especially if you look at the circumstances surrounding the whole issue. It's okay to set up a committee to look into it. And I think that if the committee finishes and they believe that some public properties have been destroyed and they want to surcharge the members who caused it, I think that it's okay. I mean, we don't want public properties to be destroyed. And so there will be no justification for, destroying public property. So in that sense, I wouldn't fault him. But really, and truly, I believe that if you set up a committee You should just give the committee terms of reference and then let the committee come out with their own recommendations, maybe the committee when they will see better than the speaker. And so, for me, if he had allowed the committee to sit and come up with their recommendations, which may include some of what he said, that would be okay. Otherwise, what seems to happen is that you are putting the horse before the cart. But if you are asking whether it's an overkill or not, in these two cases, he's setting up the committee and asking those who may be found culpable to pay the cost of destruction of public property. In my view, may not be an overkill.
So what I'm hearing is you have no problem with the 7-member special committee, the plan to surcharge those who be found culpable for the cost of repairs and all that. So your side held a press conference, and just to quote some of the things that were said, that the Speaker's decision, that is the suspension of those 4 members of Parliament, is an unfortunate overreach of parliamentary authority and an example of, quote, selective justice. What's your argument there in terms of the legality or the approach that the Speaker of Parliament used to suspend those 4 members of Parliament? What's the argument?
Well, I mean, we reject it. The argument is simple. I think that I listened to the previous speaker a little bit, and he made the point that we operate within the confines of our law, the Constitution, which is the supreme law, and in this case, the Parliamentary Act, the standing orders, and all the other provisions. There are nowhere in these laws where the Speaker of Parliament is given the power to suspend members of Parliament for whatever a particular member of Parliament may do. No matter what, the Speaker has no right, has no power within the law, within the confines of the law, to sanction members of Parliament. I think that the argument has been made around. I mean, that, look, it is the Privileges Committee that will have to set the procedural requirements. The Privileges Committee will have to set and then make a decision, make a recommendation for the Speaker to, as it were, read out the recommendation of the Privileges Committee. Look, he made a point that because the Privileges Committee hasn't been set up yet, he's more or less constituting himself into a Privileges Committee. Look, if the law wanted that to be done, the law would have stated so clearly there are no residuary powers within the Constitution, nor the Act of the Parliament Act, nor the standing order that gives the Speaker the power to do that. The law would have said so that where at any point the committee...
Mr. Daku, your voice keeps fading away. Let's try this
hello?
again. Yeah.
Is it better?
Yes. Maybe we can keep that tempo. Yeah.
So I'm saying that there are no residuary powers in the law that gives the Speaker the right to set up, to constitute himself into a committee, a privileged committee to exact punishment. Now, if the law wanted that, the law would have stated so clearly. And this is a situation where you are punishing people. And you know that at the heart of our jurisprudence, our criminal and constitutional jurisprudence in this country, is the odi otram partem rule, that a man must not be condemned or heard. And so what happened to that sacrosanct principle of our constitutional law? These people were not given the opportunity to be heard. And that is why the Privileges Committee is set up, so that they will appear, put their case
right.
Mr. Daku,
the Privileges Committee.
Just a quick reflection. Do you condemn the actions of these members of Parliament? Do you condemn their actions?
I think what happened was unfortunate.
Do you condemn their actions? That's the question to you, sir.
Yes, I'm saying that it's unfortunate that happened. It wasn't right. I don't expect our Parliament to degenerate into that kind of act. It's not right. But, there's always a but, we need to look into how it happened. Because
Mr. Daku, I think the how it happened, we all saw on television. I just want to find out from you, and there are precedents from Carlos Ahinkra running away with ballots, from people chasing him and seemingly beating him, to what we witnessed at the dawn of the 8th Parliament and all of that. There's a plethora of issues, to the point where in some instances people have had to hold the other people. And we've seen it devolve to this point. I'm asking you, as a member of Parliament, straight answer. Do you condemn the actions? There was a minority member in there. There was a majority member in there, in the person of the South Dai legislator. There are minority members in there. All of these people put together. I'm asking you a pointed question. Do you condemn their actions?
I said it was unfortunate.
No, you're not answering my question. Do you condemn them or not?
Look, my brother, I think maybe the kind of answer you were expecting from me is yes or no.
I just want a yes or no answer. That's all I want.
No, but we can't always answer our question with yes or no. Yes or no. I think that it wasn't good. It wasn't right. It shouldn't have happened. And, I mean, maybe to help you, it's condemnable. It shouldn't have happened.
Okay.
We shouldn't have gotten
it's condemnable. It shouldn't have happened. Does that mean you subscribe to some sort of punitive measures, maybe to bring sanity to Parliament, for people to realize that, yes, you can do all of these things, but if you do them, there will be consequences?
Oh, yes. I think from the earlier submission, I made it clear that if the Speaker sets up a committee, and for instance, they are asked to pay for the cost of the distraction, I will not have any problem. What I really, maybe the overkill part, what I should have said, is that inviting the police to come in, when you have set up a committee to look into it, for me, will be where the overkill will be. The members of Parliament, the Privileges Committee, can set up its own investigative body to look into what happened and make a recommendation. I don't believe that for what happened, members of Parliament should be investigated and be prosecuted by the police. That is where probably overkill will come. But
right.
If they are asked to, let's say, pay for the distraction of the chairs and the microphones, I wouldn't have a problem with that. Look, nobody wants this kind of thing to happen. It's an august house. It's a sacrosanct house. In fact, I always say, and the Speaker himself keeps saying, it is what holds our democracy together. Because when there is a coup, the executive will be retained, the judiciary will be retained. The only place or the only institution which is dissolved immediately is the Parliament and its institution. So it is a very august house that should not be reduced to this level.
Let me ask you a linked question. That will be my final bit on this. You've condemned the actions. You say they are condemnable and something ought to be done about them. There is the issue where the Privileges Committee has not been set up yet. That leaves some sort of lacuna. You made mention of it. What then is the alternative? And if there is this lacuna, how do we go about dispensing punitive measures to members of Parliament when they fall foul within this kind of space before a Privileges Committee is set up? What do you suggest?
Is the work of the Committee on Selection. And if you remember, the Speaker on the day said that the Committee of Selection must meet immediately to reconstitute the appointment committee. Putting up this committee, that is the committee we're talking about, it's not a big deal. I'm sure in the course of this week, the committees will come up, actually. The committees will come up. And so let's say if anything happens again, in a situation where we don't have the Privileges Committee set up, look, it can be put together immediately, okay? Because we are always going to have Privileges Committee, except that within the first month of any parliament, the committees wouldn't have been constituted. So within that first month, if anything happens, the Speaker and the Committee on Selection can immediately put up the Privileges Committee to look into the matter. So I don't think that any individual in the person of a Speaker or any outside body should be put together to come and investigate matters of such nature. the standing orders of Parliament gives this Committee on Selection the power to set up committees, and they can set it up immediately. And I believe that the Privileges Committee will be set up this week as well, because all the other committees, I understand, are ready, and we will present them before the end of this week.
Mr. Dako, hold for me. Let me put these things you're saying to Mr. Fuseni. So, Mr. Fuseni, first, Mr. Dako says that the Speaker has no legal backing to suspend those 4 members of Parliament. And he has, in a way, done the work that committee, that 7-member special committee is set up to do. He's done that work, going ahead to punish them, that is suspending them. How do you respond to these?
I think that we need to unpack it. So by the new standing orders, I think section 30, 31 thereabouts, 27, 30, 31 thereabouts, the Speaker has power to suspend a member of Parliament for disorderly conduct on the floor of the House. But the power to suspend is limited to only 4 days. So Mr. Dako can read that area. The Speaker has power to suspend a member of Parliament for disorderly conduct, but it can only happen for 4 days. And so obviously,
outside of the 2 weeks.
Yes, so that's obviously. So that's why I said that the fact that the regulations are inadequate is lamentably clear. So they are inadequate. Now, so when that disorderly conduct is repeated, the Speaker can suspend that member for 8 days. When it is again repeated, 12 days. So it's there in the regulations. So the Speaker has power to suspend. But has the Speaker power to suspend a member of Parliament in a committee who has misbehaved? We don't see any order that deals with that. There's no such order. Can the chairman of a committee of Parliament suspend another member of the same committee? We don't see that. Now, and so if you say the Speaker has power to suspend a member, yes, for disorderly conduct, and it is in the standing orders, the new standing orders. But whether the Speaker's powers extend to a committee and then for 2 weeks, that is doubtful. I don't believe that the rules provide for that. And throughout my practice in Parliament and as a lawyer, anytime you have difficulty in justifying a decision of an authority or person, then that decision will have problems. And that is what we are seeing with the Speaker's decision to suspend for 14 days. One, the condemnable act, using the words of Dako, Honorable Dako, did not happen before the Speaker. You would have seen it on TV or heard it, but it did not happen. And no report has been submitted to him by the chairman of the committee. 2, has the Speaker the power to extend his tentacles to a committee's meeting and deal with matters arising out of a committee? The rules are silent. You don't see it in the rules. 3, can the chairman appropriately deal, and particularly in this case, I know the chairman can ask a person to leave a meeting, but whether the chairman can suspend another member of the committee for a period ranging from 4 to 14 days, that again is lamentably absent from the standing orders of Parliament. Neither can we find it in the Constitution or the Parliamentary Act.
Mr. Fuseni, you keep using the word lamentably. It's not too long ago that the standing orders had to be revised. High time for another revision, especially in respect of some of these matters. And again, the lacuna I referenced, like Honorable Darko mentioned, within the first month of any administration, you wouldn't have had Parliament constituting these committees, including the Privileges Committee, which means that things that happen in the interim cannot properly be dealt with based on the standing orders. Is it high time we looked at the standing orders again?
That lacuna is not fatal because Parliament meets on the 7th January of the beginning of their term. It is not by accident, or it is for good reason, that we hold elections 1 month to the beginning of the term of Parliament. And it's for good reason that parties leave the leadership of their caucus for the first few weeks of the beginning of Parliament. So it stands to reason that if parties want to constitute these committees to come into force immediately the tenure of office of a parliament begins, parties can do so. There is no reason whatsoever to say that because the first month the committees are not formed, the Speaker, there is an emergency, as the Speaker says, and so the Speaker is forced to act one way or the other, which is not supported by law. I think that to deal with the lacuna, parties must be proactive. The first week or so of the beginning of the term of a parliament, the committees must be in place. And that deals with the lacuna. In fact, there are dire sanctions. I repeat, there are dire sanctions for members of parliament who misbehave in such an appalling manner in the standing orders of parliament. In fact, the gravest is an expulsion from parliament. And I don't think members averted their minds to that. You need to test majority of members of parliament to expel another member of parliament for stated misbehavior. And in this parliament, it can happen. So I think that members of parliament must begin to sit up and conduct their activities and their affairs in a responsible manner. Or else, when the standing orders comes into being, such conduct, such condemnable conduct, or conduct that can be deprecated, might have dire consequences.
I just have to follow up because of what you said. So this expulsion, what would it mean? The member of parliament loses his seat?
His seat totally.
Right.
With the two-thirds, if the Privileges Committee recommends that those members of parliament must lose their seats, you need two-thirds majority. It's in the standing orders. It's in the Constitution.
Right. And the majority in parliament now practically has two-thirds. And if
they never averted their minds to that, that's why they were misbehaving.
Right, but let's look at it this way. If that person is expelled, I mean, the Constitution states that anyone contesting to be a member of parliament must meet certain requirements. If that person is expelled, that person is not a criminal. It doesn't criminalize the person, so to speak. Does that also not mean that that person could still go and contest for the constituency seat and maybe get it again and come back to parliament?
It becomes a political question, in my view, without going back to the standing orders. It becomes a political question whether the constituents will want to return to parliament a lawless person, a person who has abused their mandate.
So, Mr. Hussaini, from what I'm gathering, from what you are saying, the Speaker's actions exceeds or extends beyond the boundaries that's the new standing orders or the authority of the Speaker by suspending these 4 members of parliament for 2 weeks. Because you said first it has to start from 4 days and then it goes, if the action is repeated, then 8 days and so on. How do we reconcile then what the Speaker has done and what the new standing orders say? Should we recall those who have been suspended? What do you suggest? How do you suggest we move this forward?
So That is why I think that the suggestion, because again, we must not be taking actions that will lower the parliament in the estimation of right-thinking people. And like generally said, two wrongs do not make a right. So I think that the leadership of parliament, majority and minority leader, must engage parliament, the speaker of parliament, and draw his attention to the obvious overstepping of his authority.
Does that mean the speaker probably didn't know this? I'm just curious to see how the leadership has to now bring this to the attention of the speaker.
I think that it would be fair to say that the speaker overlooked the provision because of the gravity of the situation.
What then is the remedy in such an instance?
The remedy clearly is, like I said, for the speaker and the leadership of parliament to meet to see how they can salvage the situation, in my view.
Mr. Darko, so you have already made that press statement and said you were rejecting the suspension of the members, but now we know that the speaker indeed acted outside the boundaries of the law to some extent. How do you suggest we move forward on the back of your rejection of the suspension anyway?
Well, I mean, so but before I go there, let me just correct something my senior brother mentioned. If you look at the order 35 of the standing orders, and maybe for the benefit of our listeners and viewers, let me read. It says that where, in the opinion of the person presiding over the House or a committee, the conduct of a member is grossly disorderly, the person presiding may order the member to withdraw from the presence of Parliament, and that member shall immediately leave the presence and shall not enter the presence again during the remainder of the day's sitting. So first, if you look at it, if you are heading a committee, in this case, let's say the appointment committee chairman, so he's the person presiding, or if you are presiding over the House, which may be the speaker at any point in time, and during that period, the member's conduct is so bad, it's so gross, then the person presiding may ask you to leave the presence of Parliament for the remainder of the day sitting. I think that there have been some changes. Maybe my brother hasn't updated his mind to. The speaker no longer has the power to suspend somebody 4 days and then say 8 days. The speaker's power, if you can look at it, any suspension power he may want to allude to under Order 35 is to ask a member to leave the presence of Parliament for the remainder of the day's sitting. That is what Order 35 says. Okay. Otherwise, any other punishment for contempt must come from the Privileges Committee's recommendation. It is a Privileges Committee that can recommend punishment for a member. Now, so coming into your question, yes, I believe that...
Mr. Darko, before you get to the question, does that mean these are changes from the old standing orders to the new one?
So this is the new standing orders I'm reading to you.
Okay, all right. Go ahead then.
Yes, so I believe that the speaker by today may understand that he acted in excess of his powers. And look, even judges, when they act in excess of their powers, their decisions will be subject to being quashed before a superior court. And so the speaker's decision, I'm sure upon reflection, he will see that he acted in excess of his powers. Now, that being the case, look, we are there to serve the interests of the people. I don't think that the speaker will want us to take this matter to the Supreme Court. And as my senior said, today I believe the leadership will meet. The speaker will see the law clearly. He's a good lawyer. He has lawyers in his office. They will come to the conclusion that he acted in excess of his powers. And I believe that the speaker and the leadership will come out to do the right thing on Tuesday when we meet. Look, we are human beings. You ask the question whether the speaker didn't know about the fact that he was going in excess of his powers. Look, I think in the heat of the moment, the speaker needed to act. and maybe made a mistake. Like I said, judges make mistakes from High Court to Court of Appeal. Even Supreme Court judges, they review their decision when they make a decision and you apply for review. So he can look at his own decision and review it and say that, look, you know what, I believe that the suspension was in excess of my power and that these people should be restored, but the investigation should continue. After the investigation report, whatever recommendation may be given to him for him to read out to members.
Thank you. Let me put something to Mr. Fuseni. So the Director of Advocacy and Policy Engagement at CDD, that's the Center for Democratic Development, also said that although the Speaker erred procedurally, he sees a challenge. Quote, the only challenge is that maybe some of the leaders of the Privileges Committee who have been suspended are probably going to be the ones that are going to sit on their own case. Is it a possibility that some of these 4 members of Parliament who've been suspended could be part of the Privileges Committee and sit their own case?
So I don't want to assume or speculate because we don't know the membership of the Privileges Committee. So one will begin by speculating or assuming that these members will be part of the Privileges Committee who have no basis whatsoever for such assumptions.
Right.
So that's why I don't want to comment on that.
Okay.
Let's get the membership of the Privileges Committee and see how they put the situation.
All right.
Number 2, I want my brother Dafu to refer himself to the provision of the new standard orders dealing with disorderly conduct. And you will see that the Speaker has power to suspend a member for 4 days, 8 days, and 12 days. The new standard
But
orders.
is that different from what he cited? He cited order 35. So which
35.
one are you?
35.
Yeah, which one are you?
35 is even imported from the old provisions. So when you are in Parliament and you are repeatedly engaging in disorderly conduct, the Speaker can ask the Marshal to remove you to ask you to leave Parliament. And if you fail to leave Parliament, the Speaker will order the Marshal to remove you from Parliament and remove you from the presence of Parliament for that certain day.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
I do not know whether you have any counter reactions, Mr. Dako, but another matter that took us, I wouldn't say by storm, but piqued our interest was the interaction with Afenyo Markin, the minority leader, and a clerk of Parliament. And it's been roundly condemned, but others have also said that, well, the clerk has acted in certain ways. I'll start with you again, Inusa, before I go to Mr. Dako. What is your take on that matter, and should it have boiled to the point where it did?
Again, Afenyo Markin allowed his emotions to overcome him. There are known procedures for Parliament to deal with such situations. And as a leader of the House, you should explore the possibility of amicably resolving an issue than letting your emotions take over. It doesn't show leadership. It doesn't show maturity. And you do that with impunity. If I was disappointed, if you think that the clerk of Parliament is behaving in a way that is manifestly biased towards your side, there are procedures to deal with that in Parliament. And the clerk of Parliament is the head of the parliamentary service. And the clerk to the committee is a member of the parliamentary service. And the parliamentary service has rules and regulations regarding how officers behave. And so why will you boil over and talk to an adult and a staff as if she didn't matter?
Was the behavior of the minority leader honorable towards the clerk? And
No,
in any
this was
instance,
very dishonorable. Because I'm sure if the clerk were the minority leader's sister, you would have not taken kindly to that as well.
the clerk did not respond, but in any case, you say there are rules and regulations about how to deal with such issues. What do the standing orders say? How could Afenyo Markin...
It's not a standing order. Standing orders deal with Parliament.
Right. So in terms of the parliamentary service, right.
She's a member of the parliamentary service. And I've known the clerk since I've known the clerk of the committee since I went to Parliament. But because she's a member of the service. You leave Parliament and she's there. If she's not 60 years, Afenyo Markin will leave Parliament and she'll be there. So there's a different regime regulating their work in Parliament.
I get that point. I'm just asking how else could it have been dealt with from Afenyo Markin's end in respect of the clerk if he felt she was being partisan?
I write a written complaint.
To whom?
Written complaint to the clerk of Parliament, through the speaker.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Dako, your quick reflections on that same point.
Okay, all right. So I think that on the previous issue on the disorderly conduct, I just want to make a snappy point because, look, if you look at the standing orders, it talks about, on 35, it says punishment for contempt of Parliament or breach of parliamentary privileges. Title, exclusion of disorderly member. And then 35 is what I read earlier on. So unless my senior has any other provision, I'm willing to look at that. But otherwise, it's the 35 that allows the speaker or a committee chair to ask a member to leave the presence of Parliament for the remainder of the day sitting. And that should conclude that. On the issue at hand, look, it's always easy to stand back to condemn people. If you know what the leader of the minority goes through every time when these things are happening, you really appreciate him. He's done a yeoman's job under the circumstance. Look, what was the situation?
Does the yeoman's job include shouting at the clerk to the committee?
But you see, why don't you always want to look at the causes of these outbursts, if we may call it that way? Here is
so the cause justifies his actions. Is that what you're saying?
No, my brother. Let's not play the saint, right? Let's look at what happened. Sometimes we are.
Well, I'm not with you in Parliament, so I'm not judging anybody. I'm just asking you questions.
Don't you all get angry? We all get angry. In fact, yesterday on one of your shows, I think it's called The Probe, this question was put to the minority leader, and he acknowledged that the clerk of Parliament has come to him and has arranged a meeting to be held today to resolve the matter. So when he was actually asked to comment on this particular incident, he decided not to comment on it. But we should understand that we are human beings before we go to Parliament. Who has been...
Hello, Mr. Dako. Hello, Mr. Dako.
Enjoying the vetting. Then this woman decides that in spite of all that, she will go ahead and swear in the nominee for the nominee to be vetted. And look, Afenyo referred her to what she had done previously when the NPP was in the majority. That any time there was a meeting, the woman will insist that we have the minority there before the meeting goes. What happened to her principle? That is what he was referring to. What happened to your principle of fairness? That you always ensure that the other side will be there before a meeting commences. In this particular case, she threw her principle out of the door because it suits her purpose. And that is what Afenyo sought to put to her. That at the time, it suited her purpose to let the vetting go on because the minority wasn't there and she was happy about it. And for me, maybe it was the mood. That's what I'm saying. We are human beings. The leader probably got angry. But under the circumstance, I don't think that you would have done anything better. You were having a meeting. You told this person, please let the chairman of the committee know that we're having a meeting, will be back shortly. And then you go ahead, knowing very well that the minority is not there, they should go ahead and vet the person. I mean, look, let's also put us in the shoes of the minority leader. He's under a lot of pressure to do what he's doing, and sometimes we should cut him some slack.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, for joining the conversation on this beat. We had John Darko, Member of Parliament for Swami. We also had Inus Afuseni, former Minister for Lands and Natural Resources.